I was reading the Associated Press the other day. The other day that I was talking to you about the pop and pager persuasion from a few days ago. And I couldn't help but notice something from Associated Press. And it's not just the Associated Press, AP News. It's Reuters, it's the New York Times, it's the Wall Street Journal, it's Politico, it's USA Today. It's any one of the major mainstream left-wing news organizations out there. Newspapers, blogs, etc. And it's the way news stories are written. You might be familiar with my famous, now infamous, bad verb rule. This, of course, is a conjunction of the words bad and adverb. It's where often public figures, journalists, pop culture influencers, when they are intending to deceive, or seem to be intending to deceive, or outright lying, they'll use one or more adverbs where they don't really belong. For example, they will say things like, they'll say like, Biden is literally the most mentally competent president we've ever had. Literally? So if you replace the adverb from a journalist with the word not, you will find the truth. So Biden is not the most mentally capable, competent president we've ever had. Oh, okay, that makes sense. They will say something like, Trump absolutely wants to ban all immigration forever. Okay, so Trump does not want to ban all immigration forever. Okay, that makes sense. So you see now you have found the truth. Now, we want to go a little bit deeper, a little bit further behind the curtain to see, to feel, to hear, to smell spin where it doesn't really belong. We've all heard of clickbait, of course, where it will have a picture, a promotional still from Robin Williams in the film Mrs. Doubtfire, and the headline of the internet tabloid will be 17 celebrities you'd never knew were trans, is what it's going to have on there. Okay. That's clickbait. Yes, there are news organizations. There are blogs. The Huffington Post comes to mind that use that level of clickbait for everything. But then there's a quiet clickbait that doesn't feel like clickbait. And I noticed that the Associated Press was doing it. I want to call this stuff out for you. Not only so you can see how your urges and instincts and curiosities are being manipulated, because I'd like you to, as my client Noah Ravoy says, I'd like you to become immune to manipulation. Become immune to manipulation. You can. We can do this together. It's going to be okay. Now, that said, you might also be able to use these as part and parcel of your marketing campaigns or sales activities, your personal branding, your social media, marketing communications, and so on and so forth. It's pretty clever, and you might learn something fun. So let's go through some of these news headlines. So there's a story about President Joe Biden interacting with the Asia Pacific region and those countries. Specifically talking about the relationships and the treaties between and among the countries of Australia, Japan, and India. Okay. So the actual story is Biden to host India, Australia, and Japan leaders in Delaware on Saturday, the 21st. So that was a couple days ago. What's the headline? That's the story. That's the story. What's the headline? This is news. It's under Associated Press, more news. I'm going to read it to you. Biden is putting personal touch on Asia-Pacific diplomacy in his final months in office. Really? Is that really what's happening? Now, the context is that he has invited those leaders of those countries to visit him at his home in Delaware, where he spent an inordinate amount of time of his presidency because his health decline is extreme. That's one of the reasons why he dropped out of the re-election issue. The first of which is that the first attempt on Donald Trump's life was unsuccessful. That is the first and foremost reason. There's a book coming out about that called Bulletproof that you might be familiar with from Skyhorse Publishing, October 22nd. Wink, wink. But now available in pre-order. Order bulletproof.com. Orderbulletproof.com. Also Amazon, but orderbulletproof.com. So what happens is this news that it's a personal touch. He's putting a personal touch. Or is it because he's not doing it at the White House? Personal touch seems to be opinion editorial, where it doesn't belong. And also is vague. Oh, what's the personal touch? What's that mean? I better click the article. You see what happened there? So it's both spin and clickbait. It's both bias and clickbait. It's both fake news and clickbait. It is not personal touch. What I think of is his home has effectively become his light hospital. Hospital light. Sort of. His healthcare facility light. Because of how much time and obviously his physical condition, his mental decline being unhideable now. Of course, as I was alluding, the debate with Donald Trump back at the end of June made that obvious. There's no going back for that from his presidency. So it all was revealed that his perfect acuity, being sharp as a tack, all wrong and everyone knew it. And yet we still get stuff like this. And it's called news. It's called news. But it's a whispering clickbait. Let's do a couple more and see what we can find. The U.S. is more hands-off than usual in the Middle East. It fears making things worse. It fears making things worse? That is a description of someone's internal state. In fact, it's a description of an entire country's emotional state. How does the Associated Press have access to the entire country's emotional state on the matter of the Hezbollah militants in Lebanon? Now, the subhead is the Biden administration taking a more hands-off approach than usual during a week of dramatic escalation between Israel and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. Is the U.S. taking a hands-off approach? That feels like an analogy. It's also a metaphor, a visual metaphor. Right? Hands off. Are they doing hands off because of fear? That doesn't seem to be in evidence. If you look into the story, it turns out that Israel let the United States know that there was going to be an operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah, but the details of it, the pop and page of persuasion, like we talked about a couple of days ago, were not revealed to U.S. intelligence, is what the claim, allegation, story is. So the fact that the United States didn't say we need to be involved in that, or no, that's a war crime, is what some people on the left are alleging. I do not think that that is the case. It seems like the opposite of a war crime, where you're simply trying to target only known combatants, only people who are committed to genociding your race. It feels like if you're attacking those combatants and only them, wherever they may be, that's the opposite of a war crime. But it is what it is. You remember from Pop and Page of Persuasion, Lord, I will make it legal. Okay, we're paraphrasing a paraphrase at this point. But you can see how the way the story is presented is not exactly a one-to-one match. In fact, they might not even be close to a one-to-one match for this. Isn't this interesting? Now also notice, like the previous one, oh, what's his personal touch? That sounds nice. I'm going to click that link to find out. What is personal touch? They don't tell you what it is. The U.S. is more hands-off than usual. If he was making things worse, well, I better click that. Well, how are they more hands-off? When the actual headline, the actual story, is something more like Israel informed U.S. about op against Hezbollah prior or beforehand. the U.S. did nothing. Or even the clickbait that would be honest would be something like, here's what U.S. officials said. Here's what U.S. military officials have said. Something like that. Oh, well, I better click that. That would be a little bit more honest, and it would also be clickbait, right? But the fear and the hands off is not in evidence. Let's see if they can get anything right. We have a story from Nepal. Cascading disasters push residents of a Nepalese valley to the brink. Not bad. It's because there's floods and landslides happening over there. And I have no beef with this one. Okay. But notice it's not about the United States. Next headline. Zoo Atlanta's last 4 pandas are leaving for China. Also, it's about China. It's less about the U.S. and it's more about China there. My goodness. So if it's U.S. related, have you noticed? You notice what we're seeing here? The majority of people visiting apnews.com are going to be Americans. They reserve their spin for us. I'm not sure whether to be pleased or offended. Here's one. Want to know about the growing conflict between Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah? So what to know? Wow. That is like a YouTube headline. What to know about the next season of Bluey? Okay. What to know about the new Feastables flavor from Mr. Beast? We have next one. Guinea's most wanted fugitive extradited from Liberia. Oh, who is that? Most wanted fugitive. Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. It's factual. It's not US based. And it's clickbait. Not bad. Now you got, why does the Babadook still haunt? Its director, Jennifer Kent, has some answers. I know nothing about that film. Perhaps you do. That's an interesting question. I like this as a headline for subject lines. Why does this thing happen? Or why does this thing still happen? It would be interesting getting a little bit meta here. Why does clickbait still work? Why does blank still do this thing? That's a nice little formula. So you notice that the AP News is indistinguishable from a tabloid. It's indistinguishable from sales copy. It's indistinguishable from marketing communications. So what are they marketing? They're marketing invisible tribalism. Because I feel like I'm informed as a cosmopolitan liberal person. Oh, I'm so informed. I feel so educated and special. That's the feeling that they're selling. But when it counts, they make sure that you believe the right things, that your cosmopolitan liberal values and worldview are reinforced by this. They're re-ingrained. That's why people pay for news, by the way, now. And of course, what do they call it? They call it independent fact-based journalism. The U.S. fears making it worse, AP. The entire country does. Really? That's fact-based. That's independent. Okay, so independent of what exactly is the Associated Press? An independent journalist is someone like Michael Cernovich. Okay, that's independent journalism. Jack Posobiec. That's not close to what AP is doing. Interestingly enough, and if you go and see other headlines, entirely fact-based. So if we see the next one, an ancient Greek vase gifted to an Italian leader is returned by his family to Greece. That is fact-based journalism right there. But notice, when we look at the US-based stories, here's another one. AP explains, migration is more complex than politics show. So that would have you believe then that what politics is showing is not the full story. Is that the case, though? That feels more like spin or opinion. Also, instead of op-ed or opinion editorial, it says AP explains. So it's a way of injecting naked opinion into a story, opinion editorial, without telling you that that's what it's doing. Interesting. It's called, we do a little quick Clyde. I was trying to do the closeout, but then I got myself tongue-tied there a little bit. I was going to say, it's called, we do a little quiet clickbait. That one's not so quiet, though, so maybe that's why I stumbled on it. That's okay. I'll see you tomorrow.